All right, here we are. It's time for another edition of, oh yes, Jonesing for Football, as we are now into the final week before NFL Draft Day 2021, or should I say NFL Draft Days 2021. Bill Jones along with Cody Winstead from the NFL Network, who is about to get very, very busy over the next week as the NFL Network really gets geared up for what all is transpiring in Cleveland. You ready for it, Cody?
I am. I'm producing a couple shows on NFL Network Thursday, 1 to 4 p.m. So a few hours before the draft, flip over to NFL Network, check us out, 3 hours there. And then we run it back on Friday afternoon, 1 to 4.
I love it. Run it back.
As well. Michael Robinson, Sean O'Hara, Mike Garafolo, and Scott
Okay,
Pioli.
I'm trying to think. Okay, Michael Robinson, he has appeared in a past Big Green NFL Draft scouting notebook. I'm not sure anyone else that you
probably not
there.
Probably not Sean O'Hara, but a great player, Sean O'Hara, just not a highly
Green notebook
regarded
wasn't
player
around yet. Yeah,
exactly.
But Michael Robinson had all of those character tangibles. I like to call them tangibles that make them a solid individual that you want in your organization. Okay, one of the best and the brightest. So there you go. And I will throw this out that on Sunday night on CBS 11, it's the Big Green Notebook 7-round Dallas Cowboys mock draft that I've been preparing for. It will be revealed on Sunday night on CBS 11 in Dallas. And I'll go ahead and tweet it out on my Twitter, CBS 11 Bill Jones. What's your Twitter, young Cody? Remind me. I may start following you.
I am Cody Wins 25. That's Cody Wins 25. And yes, Bill Jones, I'm the guy who's always tweeting you, and you do not actually tweeting me back or following me. Yeah, that's me right there.
And of course, we have our own Jonesing for Football Twitter as well, right?
Yeah, Jonesing for Football, for football. And
I'm surprised it wasn't already taken.
Yeah. I think it's
number 4 in there. Okay. Yep. All right. What are we going to talk about on this episode of Jonesing for Football?
Well, Bill Jones, it's part 2 of our Pick Your Player series. Earlier in the week, we went through some offensive players. We hit some quarterbacks, a couple wideouts, a couple offensive linemen. Today, we're shifting our focus to the defense. So I'll give you 2 draft prospects that play the same position, and you tell me which player you'd select. And we're starting with 2 of the highest rated defenders in the draft, a pair of linebackers, Penn State's Micah Parsons or Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame. Dr. Jones, please pick your player.
Oh, wow. I love this. And what I love about this is the type conversation that is going on this month in draft rooms all across the National Football League as teams try to make a decision whether they're looking at best player available or picking by position. They're making a decision on, okay, do I like this linebacker or do I like that linebacker? And a lot of it has to do, I think, with what a team's needs might be, what scheme they run defensively in the case of Parsons versus Owusu-Koramoah. And you also can look at the where that player is in their career, in their development right now, and who has more upside. One of them might be a better player his rookie year, but the other player might be better on down the road. Parsons, I mean, it's obvious. Just turn on a tape and look at him, and it just jumps off the screen at you. His athleticism and his ability to go sideline to sideline, playing the run. He's got the athleticism to play the pass as well. But I think it's almost apples and oranges when you look at these 2 linebackers. Parsons is a linebacker, okay? Owusu-Koramoah won the Butkus Award as the top college linebacker in the country, but I don't look at him so much as a linebacker. He's more of he played the rover position at Notre Dame. He, as a safety, background in high school. In fact, if you listen to his interviews, he never even thought in high school that he'd ever be a linebacker. And he did weigh 221 pounds. He was up to 221 pounds at his pro day, 6'1.5", which gets him on the radar as far as linebackers go. But you don't see him play an inside linebacker position that often at Notre Dame. And I don't think that's where he would play in the NFL on a regular basis. In sub packages, he'll be in there some, but I think his real strength is playing on the perimeter and his awareness, even after the snap, of pre-snap and post-snap. That's his. Aside from his athleticism, I think that's what sets him apart. But Parsons, you can make the case that Micah Parsons is the best defensive player in this draft. He another thing that you look at though is I think Owusu-Koramoah is off the charts as far as his character, the way he interviews, how bright he is. Parsons, I think, is football smart. You can see that he is able to read and react and diagnose plays. So he's got good study habits as far as that goes. But I think Owusu-Koramoah is just, like I say, I think he's just off the charts as far as that goes. I think the safer pick is Parsons because you can see exactly how he's going to be used as a 3-down linebacker in this league. Depending on your personnel right now, Owusu-Koramoah, he may be used. He's a Sam linebacker. He's a safety. He's obviously a sub package linebacker. But you got to be more creative in figuring out ways to use him. And if you have a creative defensive coordinator, you can use him in ways that can really impact the game. I would side with it's so difficult. Like I'm thinking of the Cowboys at number 10, Cody. All right. Do you pick Parsons at number 10, who is more of a sure bet, or do you take a trip on the wild side and say, look, and have you just fallen in love with all that other stuff about Owusu-Koramoah that even at number 10, you're going to get criticized by people saying, oh, you're taking him too high. You're taking him too high. I got no problem at all with anybody who has a plan for the jokester, JOK, who's not a jokester, taking him as high as number 10 in this draft. So, I side with JOK on this, but man, I would take it right down to the last minute, I think, on pulling the trigger over Parsons. So yeah. I'm straddling the fence on you, Cody.
Well, I'm actually with you. I would go with Owusu-Koramoah. You mentioned all the highlights of Micah Parsons. I don't think human beings are supposed to be that size and run that fast. And it's amazing watching Parsons. He closes gaps like crazy. If you're a quarterback that's escaping the pocket, he is on you in boom, real quick like this. And he can be 10, 15, 20 yards away, and he is closing the gap and ending the quarterback's play there. I loved his ability to just play with physicality. He blitzes a ton. He's kind of going around linemen, blowing up running backs, playing really physical. So there is a lot to like about Micah Parsons. I don't know about his ability to defend the pass. I would have to see more of that before I was sure. And because of that, that's why I would take Koramoah. Like you said, he's kind of that new age hybrid linebacker. And he's kind of actually different than most guys we've studied. Most are half linebacker, 60% linebacker, 40% safety. He's more like 70% safety, 30% linebacker. And I saw
some corner skills in him.
Exactly. I saw Pro Football Focus. He played 331 snaps as the slot corner last year, 212 as an inside the box linebacker, and 88 on the defensive line. So like you mentioned, Owusu-Koramoah, he's lining up everywhere. And it's almost this positionless football, kind of like they're going to in basketball right now. And he kind of fits that. Not big, not a big dude, Koramoah, Owusu-Koramoah, 6'1", 221, like you mentioned, but he delivers some shots. He's blowing some guys up.
And you know why he's able to do that? It's because he has dissected that play. I mean, he gets a 15-yard run and start on a guy because you can tell he's done the film study. He can tell, as the play unfolds at the snap, and I think it's probably reading the quarterback as much as anything, the actions of the quarterback, he knows where the play's going. He knows that he's going to throw a pass out to the running back, and he's blitzing as an edge rusher, and he knows to jump at just the right time to bat the ball away. Or he knows that the pitch is going to a back, and if he's on a blitz, he redirects, gets past the pulling offensive tackle, and steals a football from Travis Etienne and runs it in for a touchdown. I mean, it's just unreal, some of these plays. As much pleasure as I had watching Parsons and that athleticism you're talking about, I just love watching the highlight tape of JOK.
Yep, and I'm with you. I saw and felt the exact same thing. In his mind, he is certain as to what is happening, and that's allowing him to go 100 miles an hour to wherever the ball is going. You know, there's no uncertainty there out of him, and that's why he's able to blow guys up like he does. You also mentioned, I think this dude, character-wise, is a day one captain kind of guy for your defense. And so you can just put the defense in his hand. He'll know it inside and out, and players will follow him. I'm certain of that. So I'm with you. I'm taking the guy nicknamed Woo. That's the nickname. There you go.
Well, all right. You know what? And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take him. I'm going to take a trip on the wild side and get into the new age NFL. And if my defensive coordinator isn't creative enough to figure out how to get this guy making plays, then I'm getting a new defensive coordinator, because I think JOK is a special player. Taking nothing away from Micah Parsons, but I think he's got that added. He's such a cerebral player. And did you hear on his pro day, he was talking about the interviews that he does with NFL teams, and he's asking the NFL teams questions about what's your culture like, that sort of thing. I mean, he aced every single interview. And so Bill Belichick, you got yourself a great player in Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
He's
going to the Patriots.
You're probably right. All right, let's get to some edge rushers, Bill Jones. A couple guys you're very familiar with, both played in your Big 12. Ronnie Perkins from your beloved OU, or the Texas Longhorn, Joseph Ossai. I wonder which way you're leaning, Mr. Longhorn. Pick your player. Oh, I'm sorry. I wonder which way you're leaning, Mr. Sooner. I said Mr. Longhorn. I wonder which way you're leaning, Mr. Sooner. Pick your player.
We got the Red River rivalry right here with Ronnie Perkins and Joseph Ossai.
Yes, sir.
And I love this because you've got two players that are projected by many to be like second round prospects as edge rushers in this league. And I think that you can look at probably the top 10 to 12 edge rushers in this draft, and there's not much difference in a lot of them. And so it's going to be, beauty is in the eye of the beholder on a lot of this stuff. And I think one of the keys, though, in judging edge rushers as far as the draft goes is what kind of potential do they have? How is this guy a finished product, or does he have the ability to become more than what he was in college? A great example of it, one guy that I was on big time 6 years ago was Danielle Hunter from LSU. He did not have much production at LSU, but he had all those measurables you're looking for. I think when he came out, he was 6'5", 252 pounds, had the length. His cone drill was under 7. I mean, all the things you're looking for in an edge rusher. And I thought, and I think the Cowboys were picking late in 2015. That was a Byron Jones draft, I think. They were picking in the 20s. And I said, I would take Danielle Hunter here. I mean, the Cowboys obviously had a need at defensive end. DeMarcus Lawrence contract situation was up in the air, and he didn't go until late third round. and I couldn't believe it. I mean, if you just looked at him, you saw that this guy is an atlas. I mean, he spends every waking hour in the weight room and so forth. Then he's had a very nice start to his career. Hopefully comes back from the injury that kept him out all of last year. So Ronnie Perkins versus Joseph Ossai. I love Ronnie Perkins' production. You know, when you look at his stats from last year at Oklahoma, keep in mind, he only played in 6 games, 5 starts, had 5.5 sacks. So extrapolate that over a 14-game season, which he normally would have played. He was suspended for 6 or 7 games as a result of he was suspended for the bowl game against LSU, and so I assume it was a failed drug test. And the NCAA, you know, they not only suspend you for the bowl game, they suspend you for half of the next season. And they appealed it, and then it didn't win the appeal, so he wasn't eligible until late October in 2020. 5.5 sacks in 5 starts. Okay, extrapolate that. That's 15 sacks in a 14-game season. And the year before, he had 6 sacks in 13 games. He is a guy who at 6'2.5", 253 pounds, he doesn't have the same athleticism that Ossai has by any stretch of the imagination. 9'7", broad jump, 32 vertical. He does have explosion in that he's at 25 bench reps. He's a strong guy. I think what you're getting in Perkins, what you see is what you're getting, which isn't a bad player at all. I think he merits a second round grade that a lot of teams will have on him. They'll have a second or third round grade on him. And he is a high energy guy. I think from a character standpoint, he's smart. He's got that he checks the boxes on that stuff. But having said all that, I'm really intrigued by Joseph Ossai, and I think he was. I don't blame the Texas coaches as much because I think he's one of those players who is developing. He wasn't the same thing when he stepped on campus at Texas as what he was when he finished up at Texas. We're talking about a 41.5 vertical and a 10-11 broad jump, 4.62 with a 1.58 split. And he's got the production as well. I mean, there are some games he just absolutely dominated. And for the life of me, Cody, I don't understand why Joseph Ossai isn't being talked about as a late first round selection. I see a lot of people have him in the second round, some as late as the third round. I think if that is true, they are missing the boat on Joseph Ossai.
Yep, 100% agree. I'm kind of with you. It's close on these two guys, but I'm leaning Ossai as well. You mentioned both guys similar build, 6'4" and 6'3", both right around 250 pounds. The hands, the arms, the wingspan, both very similar, but their styles are different, kind of like you mentioned. Perkins is more of a physical guy. You know, he's looking for contact. He's trying to blow guys up. Ossai is more athletic, and you can tell he's working on swim moves. He's trying to beat the edge, get around the tackle. And so I like Ossai just barely. He's coming off a great year, first team All Big 12, first team All American as well, led the conference in tackles for loss, third in the FBS. He had 16 tackles for loss last season. Nearly unblockable from what I saw on tape against those Big 12 linemen. They were lost trying to figure out how to block Ossai.
And by the way, along those lines, one of those Big 12 linemen that you're talking about, Tevin Jenkins for Oklahoma State, their right tackle, number 73. I mean, it was basically the last play of the game, the game sealing play. Ossai blows right past him and sacks the quarterback to end that game. He had a huge game against Oklahoma State. And Tevin Jenkins is a guy who's being talked about in the late first round now. The scouts are so impressed with him. Yep. These weren't, offensive tackles that aren't getting looks in the NFL that he's running by in the Big 12. Yeah, I mean, I think Ossai's got a great future. The other thing, Cody, about him is I think there are more teams that are going to be on Ossai than Perkins, because I think Perkins is more of a 4-3 defensive end, and Ossai can play in either a 3-4 or a 4-3.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Bill Jones, I love character guys, high character guys, and Ossai is a great kid. I saw a
Yes, he is.
story on Longhorn Network about him growing up in Nigeria. He played soccer growing up. He wasn't introduced to football until 10 years old. And so the rest is now history, man. He's turning into a top prospect, and I'm just confident that he's going to be a really solid player in the league. Again, might not be a 10, 12, 14 sack guy in the NFL, but he'll be able to get you 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, something along those lines. And I like Ossai.
And potential is there. Who knows? You may really hit on something with him. I mean, he could. He's got the potential if he develops. And, we don't know work ethic and all that stuff. But just the mere fact that you're talking about the hand movements and figuring out ways to get to the quarterback, it shows that he's got that creativity and he's got the willingness to learn. But you also see him out in space. There were times, what I alluded to with Texas, I thought he was used. They finally settled on him as their jack defensive end, rushing the passer in this last year or so there, and it shows up. But his first year, I think they thought he might be more of a linebacker, and so that's why that they didn't use him in that role. And I'm sure that he got in the weight room, he got bigger, stronger, and so he evolved more into an edge rusher. And I think the evolution will just continue for Joseph Ossai in the NFL. I really like that player.
Yep, definitely a high ceiling. All right, so we agree on Ossai. We'll wrap it up, Bill Jones, with a couple guys in the secondary here and a couple corners likely to be selected in round 2. They are Asante Samuel Jr. from Florida State or Elijah Molden from Mr. Jones, pick your player.
I was hoping that you would give me Elijah Molden out of Washington. And I think that's a great comp, Molden versus Samuel, because there's so many of the corners in this draft. There are so many guys that people are talking about that are 6 foot, 6'1" corners, and these are shorter guys. Okay, Asante Samuel Jr., obviously the son of the former NFL Pro Bowler Asante Samuel, but he's 5'10" and 1/8 inch tall. But let me talk about Elijah Molden. I mean, as much as I like watching Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and the things he does on a football field, I'm just as much immersed in watching Elijah Molden. He is fun to watch. And this is a kid, 5'9.5", okay, 192 pounds. And what I look at him, he's got the corner skills. He could play outside, but he's a slot corner and he's a safety in my eyes. He is, I think in the NFL, they need to invent a position. The Honey Badger invented it. It is, I think we ought to call it the Badger position, the Honey Badger position. And that is what Elijah Molden is. Budda Baker is that type player. Antoine Winfield with Tampa Bay is that type player. And it's that safety who can cover in the slot, has corner skills, but he's just a playmaker, okay? He is making plays all over the field. He had 5 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles. He only played 4 games this year, and he was the Pac-12 Player of the Year.
That's good.
The year before, he had in 2019, 13 starts. He had 4 picks. I mean, he was just 3 forced fumbles. He was all over the field making plays. And when you talk about all of that other stuff, he was a finalist for the Campbell Trophy, the Academic Heisman. He won the Guy Flaherty Award, which is the team's most inspirational player. He is a special football player, and it goes all the way back to high school where he actually played for Chris Miller, the former NFL quarterback at West Lynn High School in Oregon. And he was a running back and cornerback in high school. His team won the 6A state championship, went 14-0. I mean, he was just a tremendous athlete, making plays both on offense and defense. And I think he'll continue to do that in the NFL. A lot of people have him projected as a, let's see, Jeremiah's got him the 7th ranked cornerback, 49th overall player. Dane Brugler's got him 6th ranked cornerback, 45th player. I would love to see the Cowboys take him at the number 44 pick in the 2nd round, but I don't know that they view him the same way I do, because they haven't had that honey badger position on this team. Although I understand after the fact they were interested in the honey badger. In the honey badger, Tyrann Mathieu was a 3rd round pick. Of course, he had some issues coming out of LSU, which is what dropped him down. But the guy's got the ball skills. He's got everything that you want. The only thing he doesn't have is the size. I looked up Eric Weddle as a comp, and Eric Weddle, 5'11", 203, Molden 5'9.5", 192. So he's smaller than Weddle, but he has those same type qualities that Eric Weddle had.
What do you make of his 40 time, Bill Jones? 4.6, I believe, right?
My understanding is, and he did not have a cone drill or a shuttle because he had a right hamstring. My understanding is he may have tweaked that. I didn't see the pro day, but my understanding is he may have tweaked that hammy on one of his 40 runs. And so he did do a vertical 36.5. And so he's got to be, if he did a cone drill, it'd be in the 6'7" range, 670 range. The quickness on the field, you just rely on the tape and that closing speed that he has. He's a lot like Owusu-Koramoah, and being able to, that court awareness, the field awareness, and being able to break on a ball and make a play. I've got no issues about his 4.6 40 time, because I don't think that was real.
Yeah, I heard he mentioned that the hamstring injury as well. I just wanted to throw that out there, because you look at some of the numbers and that's glaring. If you don't know the backstory, you just see that.
And if he's playing safety, usually a 4.6 is a safety.
That's fair.
But I don't look at him as an outside corner. He's a slot corner and safety when the team is not in the nickel.
I gotcha. I'll take Asante Samuel Jr., Bill Jones. When I watched him, really natural at corner. You can just tell this dude belongs in the secondary. His instincts are terrific. He led Florida State in pass breakups all 3 years he was there. 29 pass breakups in 32 career games. He had 3 picks in 2020. And obviously, like you mentioned, it's in his blood. His father was a great player, winning 2 Super Bowls with New England. He was just a great recruit coming in, and he lived up to the billing. A top 25 overall recruit, a stud from day one, 2-time All ACC player. Something I really liked. He might be the best tackling corner in the draft. He plays really big, like size wise, 5'10", 180, but you wouldn't know that by how he plays in the run game. He's blowing up running backs. He's picking running backs up and slamming them on the ground. And if you listen to interviews with Samuel, he'll repeat it over and over. Listen, I'm a dog. My heart. That's what separates me from everybody else, is just his tenacity. And so I love that about him. And you bring up the position flexibility with Molden. I think that's possible for Samuel as well. He played some safety with the Seminoles. And so I'm wondering how much teams will factor that into kind of where they draft Samuel here. It looks like likely in round 2.
Yep. And again, I mentioned where Jeremiah's got Samuel ranked ahead of Molden, 5th overall cornerback, 39th overall, and Brugler has him one spot ahead of him too, 5th cornerback and 42nd overall. So yep. They're kind of in agreement. That's why it was so cool that you picked out Samuel versus Molden, because this is the conversation that's going to be happening in draft rooms, and in fact, probably in draft rooms, I can sense it, let's say the Cowboys don't pick a cornerback in the first round, and they're looking at their number 44 pick, and they're choosing between Samuel and Molden, and okay, who do you like? You might have the DC Dan Quinn might like one guy, and the secondary coach Joe Witt Jr. might like another guy. Then we leave it up to Jerry to make the decision, and he'll take Johnny Manziel.
Hey, well, oh, that's funny.
That wasn't fair.
It's entirely possible that Penei Sewell falls to the Cowboys at 10. Someone who's supposed to be in the top 7 or 8 picks falls to the Cowboys at 10. And just like last year, Jerry can't resist this top prospect, snatches him up, and then just like he did last year. All right, we'll just go all defense with the rest of our picks. And that makes basically their second round pick have to be defense. And like you said, these are very likely to be the top 2 corners on the board when we start day 2.
That's right. And by the way, Cowboys did a pretty good job with those first 2 draft picks last year with CeeDee Lamb and Trayvon Diggs.
I think so.
And then Neville Gallimore in the 3rd round. So it worked out for him last year. So I'm always a big proponent of not being misled by your immediate needs on a team, because usually these rookies, when they come in, they usually take some time to get going. Now, of course, now we got a 17-game regular season. So by November, they've already played a season. So there you go.
Yep.
All right. Well, I enjoyed this. This was great. What do you think we ought to do on the next episode of Jonesing for Football?
Well, our next episode will be draft week. We'll finally be in draft week. I say bold predictions. I got to go bold predictions next week. I've got one on the quarterbacks. I know where I'm going. Do you got any in mind? You know where you're headed?
You know what? I got a couple of days to prepare for that. You've just hit me with these bold predictions. Okay, I'll come up with some bold predictions by the time we have our next episode. And
trust me, you won't want to miss mine.
And we'll also review my at some point within the next few days. We'll review my Big Green Notebook 7-round Dallas Cowboys mock draft, which every year, Cody, I don't pick like what the Cowboys will pick. This is who they should pick. And so every year I only get about one of them right that the Cowboys actually make the selection. So
I watch every year, Bill Jones, even from Philadelphia. I've got my notepad out, and I'm tracking every move you say they should take. So I have
a lot of time
Sunday night.
A lot of time the Eagles take the players that I like through the years. I found that the Eagles might be looking inside the Big Green Notebook. Maybe I need to start calling it a Big Blue Notebook.
I was going to say,
Eagles have license to look at it. All right. That does it for Jonesing for Football. And yes, it's going to be a big week ahead as we get you ready for the NFL draft. Thank you very much, Cody Winstead. See you next time.
Sweet.